So I stumbled upon this TikTok. Now you might know that I'm not a fan of parents splashing their children all over TikTok. I'm terrified to put myself on TikTok. I still haven't done it. Never mind putting my child out there for strangers to see. Unfortunately, there are a lot of autistic children who are uploaded to TikTok though, often to showcase traits that are seen as disordered or unusual in the name of education or autism awareness or just keeping it real in quotation marks. It's a sentence you'll hear a lot of these autism parents say when they post things like autistic meltdowns on TikTok to justify it. I cannot imagine how I would feel if my parents had been uploading me flapping my hands since I was 2 years old. So in today's video, there's going to be a lot of blurring of faces because obviously these children have not and cannot consent to being put on the internet, as no children can. So this particular TikTok is set to sad music and it reads, "If you're autistic child had no idea what was going on this morning, didn't care for their gifts, won't eat the Christmas dinner, and just has their safe food. If you spent the day regulating them rather than playing, if today was no different from yesterday or tomorrow, remember this, you are not alone," all caps, rainbow emoji. And basically in the TikTok, a man who I assume is the child's father is holding a large present which he has started to unwrap and seems to be following the child around the living room trying to interest them in the Christmas present. He holds the present in front of the child's face and starts ripping the paper. The child then actually physically pushes the present out of the way. The camera then cuts to the child strapped into a little chair. Maybe the child asked to be put in the chair, maybe the child wanted to be put in the chair, or maybe he was strapped in an attempt to make him focus on the gift. But the child then continues to turn around and look in the opposite direction. The child is smiling at the end of the TikTok, but still showing absolutely no interest in this big, now partially unwrapped present. Imagine being super busy, you know, doing something that feels super important to you and someone keeps shoving a random object in front of your face. This child was clearly on a mission that did not involve red wrapping paper in any way, shape, or form. And may I just say, I believe at the time of this TikTok, this child was only 2 years old. There was something quite uncomfortable about watching this child be followed around the room, the dad seemingly making exaggerated hand gestures of exasperation. Now I doubt, or at least I hope they actually spent the whole Christmas morning, you know, chasing the child around with various different gifts, doing exaggerated hand gestures in the child's face. I imagine they kind of played it up for the camera in order to get a visually entertaining snippet for TikTok that they could set to a song about how it will all be okay. But still, are you really that desperate to force the magic of Christmas? And is it still magical if it is forced? Now, I don't mean to single out these parents particularly. This does seem to be a sore spot for many parents of autistic children, the lack of engagement in Christmas activity. Someone commented, "I sat in the middle of the floor bawling this morning because he wanted nothing to do with unwrapping his presents. I know it sounds silly, ... So I want to discuss this expectation placed on autistic children to perform joy and enjoyment in a way that is socially acceptable and normal in quotation marks, particularly focusing in on Christmas, but this can apply to all sorts of activities all year round. I'm going to do my best to do this in a nuanced way, as I always try to do. I am a parent myself. It doesn't make me feel super happy to criticize other people's parenting. I know that it's something that's very, very sensitive. I also wouldn't dare to say that I know any of these children any better than their parents do, and I am also not the parent of an autistic child. I am autistic myself, but I do not have any experience of caring for another autistic person or raising another autistic person or looking after somebody with higher support needs than I have. But although I don't love criticizing other people's parenting, part of me does want to say, you know, if you don't want to be criticized, don't be putting this stuff out there on TikTok. And that is honestly the biggest criticism that I'd have for any of these parents. How are these children going to feel about that content being out there when they grow up? The internet is forever. I mean, this account in particular has millions of views on TikToks about their child's eating disorder. I don't like anybody watching me eat, never mind, you know, millions of strangers. I do understand that parents are doing their best. You know, they just want their children to be happy. I think a lot of people's idea of happy and probably the happiest memories that they have of their entire life is, you know, ripping presents open on Christmas morning and being so excited that you can't sleep the night before. I mean, knowing autistic people and autistic children, they probably couldn't sleep the night before, whether or not they were actually excited about the presents under the tree. But yes, this family were not the only ones who set clips of their Christmas morning to emotive music of some form. Before we take a look at a few more TikToks, speaking of wanting to remain private and refrain from plastering my child all over my social media, I need to say thank you so much to Delete Me for continuing to support this channel and for bringing this video to you today. I potentially do overshare quite a bit on this channel. I show a lot of clips of myself as a child for sure, which is obviously fine because I'm an adult and I can consent to showing that here. However, there's a lot of my data that I do not consent to having all over the internet, which still finds its way there, which is why I've been using Delete Me since earlier this year to protect myself and my family. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service. Their mission is to remove their customers' data from search results because unfortunately data brokers exist. They're corporations who crawl the web to collect and package and sell personally identifiable information such as your name, age, phone number, address, maybe even photos of you. They might find your details through social media, public records, and also other data brokers. And I hate that. And if you've ever wondered why you get so many spam calls, texts, and emails, this is probably why. I know a lot of neurodivergent people hate being interrupted. Getting notifications that I do actually want can be super annoying to me. So getting interrupted for a spam call is just rage inducing. But of course, it's not just irritating. There's a risk of becoming a target of phishing scams. I think most of us know at least one person who's fallen for an email masquerading as their bank or similar. Always verify the email address or phone number before clicking a link and giving somebody your details. And it seems like these scams are becoming more sophisticated as a result of AI, which is a bit scary. The Delete Me website is really easy to navigate. If we look at my latest report here, you can see they deleted info not only about me, but my relatives too, which is great because I'm not a family vlogger. I don't want that on the internet. If you join, you'll also get a detailed report within 7 days, and then you'll continue to receive reports about the actions they take on your behalf. Delete Me is currently offering viewers of the channel 20% off consumer plans when you go to joindeleteme.com/Meg and use the promo code MEG. That's joindeleteme.com/Meg. Code Meg. Meg is my name. I feel like I always have to point that out. Back to the video, there are a couple of TikToks in which moms film themselves unwrapping the presents their child wasn't interested in after Christmas. If you've been here a long time, if you've been watching the channel since last year, you will have already seen this one. It was in a TikTok compilation last Christmas. It has a very sad song in the background. It's hard to watch this and not kind of feel depressed. The text on screen reads, "This is the reality of having a child with autism at Christmas. Here I am on the 27th of December doing all I can to make my living room bare and back to normal in quotation marks." And she looks visibly quite upset about it. "Opening the gifts that became too much for my son to open, it hurts. I feel guilty for even buying them / letting family buy them when I know deep down how he'll react." And I do imagine it must be hard when you have family members that don't get it, and that probably adds a lot of extra pressure onto family, particularly if you have an expectation to go to big family gatherings when it's Christmas. And I do imagine it must be hard when you have family members who just don't get it, who kind of ignore the fact that your child is autistic and will not do anything to accommodate them or like alter anything about their Christmas day. It's so hard seeing social media filled with happy, excited children. And then she actually says, "I haven't enjoyed Christmas since his diagnosis." I'm not sure what she means by this because of course autism is always there. You don't become autistic on the day you were diagnosed. Maybe she just means she expected him to enjoy Christmas more as he grew up than he does. "How can I enjoy something that upsets my child so much? I tell myself things will be better each year just as they are each year." I'm assuming that means each year I tell myself things are going to be different and then it ends up being the same as the previous year. "Next Christmas, we will adapt to a Christmas that meets his needs more than anyone else's, including our own." And then there's a heart emoji, which I mean, great if you're planning to make some changes. It sounds like this child was quite overwhelmed by Christmas, but there is a bit of a note of we will be miserable in order to make sure he's okay. A note of self-pity, I suppose. The caption reads, "I'm not looking for sympathy. Awareness is all I'm aiming for." I feel like the autism awareness hashtag has a lot to answer for. What are we making people aware of with this TikTok? I get that it may make other mums feel less alone, which I do think has its place. And at least this TikTok doesn't show her actual child. This person does sometimes show her child in other content. It seems to always be positive content when she shows her child, which is better. But I don't know what the message of this TikTok is other than autism ruins my Christmas, basically. Hashtag autism awareness, which might be how you feel in a moment after a really hard day, sure. But I don't don't know if I'd call that useful awareness. It's not like any tips have been shared with other parents here, other than maybe perhaps don't overwhelm your child with too many gifts, and don't let family members overwhelm your child with too many gifts. Anyway, again, not to focus on one person too much, here's another one that's very similar. We've got a bit of John Lennon, Happy Christmas in the background. It's playing The War Is Over bit. I can't play it because of copyright, but I'm sure you can imagine it. You can insert it in your head. To all the mums who have had to unwrap all the gifts because their child isn't interested or got too overwhelmed, I see you. Your feelings are valid. Try to find the joy. Which feels a bit ironic on a not very joyful TikTok. This one is captioned, "This morning has been rough," with the pensive face emoji apparently, which is described on Emojipedia as a pensive, remorseful face, saddened by life, quietly considering where all things went wrong. Oh no. I feel like I need to go and read a whole bunch more of Emojipedia descriptions of emojis now. Again, this parent does share their child a lot, particularly about their ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and a lot of autistic people have ARFID. And they also even share things like cutting their child's fingernails. Plus we have clean my kid's bathroom with me. And there's a clip where their child has climbed on top of the kitchen cabinet above the fridge. TikTok actually gives like a dangerous activity warning on screen for this one. And then we have this TikTok. There isn't sad music on this one. There is Sexy Santa sped up. Don't worry, the lyrics aren't particularly sexy. I think it's an Ariana Grande song. So they share here that their son is diagnosed level 3 autistic and finds holidays and birthdays overwhelming. It's hard doing nice things for him without his diagnosis getting in the way, which is difficult to read as an autistic person. Most autistic adults, not all, but many, see themselves as autistic. It's inseparable from you. It's not a disease you've caught. It's not something you carry around. It's how your mind works. So to me, this reads as, it's hard doing nice things for him without him getting in the way, without the way he is getting in the way of the things I've decided I want to do for him. But I imagine the reason for wanting to do those nice things is because you want to make your child happy, but what's nice for you might not be nice for him. I guess people look back to their own childhoods and what made them happy. There is a lot of nostalgia involved in being a parent, and you do think back to your own childhood quite a lot. But of course, all children, they're not just copies of you, whether they're autistic or not. It goes on to say, this Christmas, I got to witness our boy open his presents for the first time ever, and then they say that they're so proud of him because of this. And then we have this one.
We've tried many times to get to open parcels on his birthday and at Christmas time. And even though we've never really had success, we still wrap his presents every year, just in case.
And I have to ask, like, why do they continue to wrap the presents each year? I can understand maybe, wrapping a couple to see if anything has changed. Like a whole year's gone by, a child's going to develop a lot in that time, maybe they'll enjoy it this year. But wrapping up all of them when it hasn't gone down very well in the past, I don't know. Maybe it's just me being autistic, but I do find this obsession with colourful paper and plastic a bit strange. There are lots of alternatives to wrapping paper, obviously. You could do gift bags instead, or you could just arrange the presents unwrapped in a nice way. There are a lot of parents on TikTok who do this, and also lots of parents recommend doing this in the comments of pretty much all of these TikToks that I've shown. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't personally have any great attachment to wrapping paper. Actually watching some of these TikToks of the parents tearing into the paper is quite unpleasant from a sensory perspective. Wrapping paper is so wasteful as well. You can just end up with mountains of it on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve if you open your presents on Christmas Eve. Yes, you can get recyclable paper, but it will be covered in tape that you'll need to rip off, which is a painfully boring activity. And tape itself can be a sensory ick for quite a lot of autistic people. In my house, we use knot wraps. It was the best decision we ever made to switch over knot wraps. Well, probably not the best decision we ever made, but it's been a good decision that we made. More environmentally conscious, maybe more autism friendly for some people. We're all different, who knows? But anyway, I'll get off my knot wrap soapbox. On the other hand, there are TikToks from parents who are absolutely elated when their children finally do unwrap their Christmas presents. This one has a soaring ballad in the background that basically scream shouts the lyrics, "All I ever wanted is this." And this one has an audio that I think they've just put on the background, but it's somebody sobbing with joy.
I like to downplay a lot of shit, but this is it's a big deal.
My autistic son has always needed help opening his presents. Today at almost age 4, he opened a present all by himself. And I get that this might not just be about unwrapping presents, it might be a celebration of certain milestones, celebrating your child's improvement with their motor skills, which can be a thing that many, if not most, autistic children will struggle with to some extent and may have a dyspraxia diagnosis as well. But I think there's also an element of finally things are the way that they're supposed to be, the way I always imagined them being. And if these children are having a great time opening these presents, then that's wonderful. Children are always growing and changing. What they hate one year, they might love the next year. You never know. But this kind of desperate energy around this kind of makes me feel a bit sad for everybody involved. As that one mother said, she was comparing herself and her family to all these picture perfect highlights reels she was seeing from other people on social media, which are probably not even true. They're probably not even a true reflection of their actual Christmas days. Just anecdotally, I tend to find that it's often the people who really aren't all that happy in real life who are the first to, want to portray everything as completely wonderful online. But some of these parents seem like they're putting so much pressure on themselves, and therefore probably their children as well, even if their children don't fully understand the expectation. They may still pick up on that energy and this desire to kind of control the situation and make it conform to this sort of tick box exercise of a magical Christmas. Obviously, autism is largely genetic. Some of these parents may be neurodivergent themselves. In fact, I think the parents in the very first TikTok I showed are actually neurodivergent themselves as well. The parents themselves may have somewhat of an anxiety-driven need to remain in control and to have their Christmas, fit a certain number of steps and be a little bit more rigid about how they want the day to be, and maybe want the day to follow a set routine if they are autistic, and maybe find it less easy to tolerate if the day doesn't go exactly to plan or exactly as they've pictured it in their heads. Sometimes I'm sure autistic family members have conflicting needs, and that could be super difficult and cause a lot of friction. But either way, life sometimes is just more messy than the movies and than social media, which might be one of the reasons that parents use to justify sharing this kind of content on social media, because they're keeping it real in quotation marks, which is fine. But I bet there's a lot of things you wouldn't post about yourself in order to keep it real, but that you are posting about your children. Like, are you posting cutting your own fingernails? Probably not. I wish some of these parents could just free themselves of these expectations that they need to tick certain boxes in order for it to count as Christmas, in order for it to be adequately magical and to make these set memories that they feel like they need to make.
Most parents dream of that magical moment where their child comes down Christmas morning and sees their gifts from Santa. Is autistic and very routine-led. Christmas morning, she took no notice of her gifts whatsoever.
And I also wish these parents would think about the children. Obviously, I'm sure these parents do, although not enough to not post them or negative content about them on TikTok, unfortunately. But yes, even if you are thinking about your child on Christmas and you do anything for your child, you still have a right to feel your feelings and to have a hard day sometimes. Parents are humans too. I wish they wouldn't lament publicly though. Again, how are your children gonna feel if they find this one day? Are they going to feel like a burden, like they ruined your Christmas? Even if content like this does make other parents feel less alone, which it seems like from reading the comments, it does, is it worth it? Because that's at the expense of your children's privacy. I think this is where things like closed Facebook groups or WhatsApp group chats with other parents could be really helpful, or even just venting privately to family members or friends. But I wonder if these parents are always thinking about why their child isn't, rushing up to unwrap these presents. If they do, many of them don't seem like they're acting like they're thinking about this. As I say, it could be unpleasant from a sensory perspective, it could be noisy, the sensation of ripping might not be pleasant, feel of the paper, the sticky tape. There was this one parent who was celebrating about the fact that their child was finally opening a gift themselves, but they pull off one piece of paper and then immediately run to the bin to throw the piece of paper away. It seemed like they were potentially a bit stressed out by the paper in their hands and they weren't entirely sure what to do with it. It may be visually overwhelming as well to have all of these colourful parcels appear in your living room that is, probably usually a comfortable, safe space. As I say, autistic children can struggle with their motor skills, so maybe it just kind of feels like it's not worth all of the effort they have to put in to open it. And Christmas is obviously off the usual routine as well. This child, the one whose mom put the "All I Ever Wanted Is This" song in the background of a TikTok of them opening some presents later later on this same day. They just walked past the presents to go into the kitchen to get their normal breakfast, the same breakfast they have every day.
Christmas morning, she took no notice of her gifts whatsoever, but simply hand-legged me into the kitchen to get her normal breakfast cereal.
I think that's super sweet and a testament to how much she loves her usual routine with her parents and how safe they make her feel on a daily basis. I don't know, did we need to see these clips with sad music in the background? As I say, this child did open and play with some of the presents later on in the day when they were ready and had had their morning cereal.
Doesn't really understand the concept of Christmas and Santa, and that beneath that lovely wrapping paper will be nice toys for her to play with. But in these few moments, it was truly magical. She managed to open about 5 gifts before she became a little bit bored of this and chose to do something else. We asked Santa not to wrap all of gifts this year, but instead leave some things unwrapped that she could enjoy.
I feel like Christmas morning is usually kind of supposed to be like just you and your immediate family. Does TikTok really need to see it, no matter how magical or non-magical it is? Anyway, back to autism and Christmas and why it might be more difficult. There might be more people around than usual, maybe your grandparents, maybe other children, cousins running around screaming. And when it comes to presents, maybe there are just more people watching you, more expectations on you. Autistic people can deal with something called demand avoidance. I prefer to say demand anxiety. This expectation to perform might just be too much for some autistic kids. Autistic people can also get very attached to objects and can also dislike change. So for that reason, an autistic child's old toys might actually have a stronger pull.
And she took absolutely no notice of her presents whatsoever. She walked straight past them and went for her little spinner. So all in all, it was quite a peaceful morning.
When I was about 14, I got this laptop that I had been saving for ages. I had been wanting for years. Video editing was my little special interest, still is, and I really needed to upgrade. I was using the family computer and it was doing the blue screen of death all the time. I continued to use the family computer, left the laptop in the other room for 2 weeks until my mom had to stage an intervention basically and really encourage me to go and use it and to switch over. And it was really hard. I was like, well, every day I come home and I sit in this chair at this desk and I use the family computer. And it was hard for me to pivot onto something new. And also some autistic children, like the child right at the start, might just be doing their own thing. It was hard to tell what they were interested in that TikTok. I wasn't sure if there were white chocolate buttons on the TV stand behind them, or maybe it was little toys or chalk or something. Whatever it was, something was clearly holding their interest and it was way more interesting to them than this big red parcel. Just because you can't see or understand what is holding your child's attention doesn't mean nothing is. I think acceptance that an autistic person is autistic is so important. I think kind of leaning into that rather than fighting against it could maybe lead to a happier Christmas time for everyone. Not that everything's going to be perfect because life is messy. There are so many parents making lovely TikToks about how they've accommodated their autistic children at Christmas. We do things differently than typical, in quotation marks, families for Christmas since our son is autistic. And then this person's opening a toy train and takes it all out of the box and puts it out in front of the Christmas tree. So number 1, expectations are kept low. If he doesn't react to a gift, it's totally okay. Most of his gifts don't come Christmas morning. He receives more experiences than tangible items, which is really nice. And again, environmentally conscious. Number 3, Christmas Day is at our house so he can have sensory breaks if he needs them. He gets his own Christmas dinner, rice, blueberries, popcorn, etc. That's really sweet. Number 5, no waiting in line to see Santa. We go to see him at a scheduled time, and if we don't get a picture, that's fine. We still enjoy this time of year so much. Christmas is still special in our home. And there we are. Oh no, the train, it doesn't work. What was wrong with the train? You can't end it like that. And you can do your own thing, like having sensory snow made from bubbles. There are a lot of autistic adults who have spoken out as well about how they find Christmas super awkward because they feel like a lot of social expectation to react in a certain over-the-top way when they open their gifts as well. Again, I'm quite lucky because I always had quite small Christmases with just my immediate family. I didn't really feel that, kind of stage fright, I suppose. But some autistic people have been scolded for not having appropriate reactions to gifts or not looking happy enough, even if they are happy internally.
I got you something. Wow.
You're really ungrateful. I gave that to you. I'm autistic and I have a hard time showing when I'm thankful or grateful for something. I really love this. I'm just having a hard time showing that to you. You're saying that's your happy face?
How do you find Christmas? Do you enjoy it? Did you enjoy it as a child? How do you find opening gifts in front of other people? If you want some accommodations for yourself or the autistic people in your life, I made a video all about that last week. I spend a lot of time on these videos. I think the minimum I've ever spent on a video was 10 hours. So if you would like to support me on Patreon, I would be so grateful. I'll leave the link in the description. If you join, even if you join on the lowest tier, which is $4 US, you can join the Discord server so you can chat to other autistic and neurodivergent people. It's a really, really lovely space. I'm so proud of it and I'm so thankful for everyone in there for making it what it is. You also get exclusive content over there. My most recent exclusive video was the series that I do over there of autistic advice. I spoke about imposter syndrome. It's feeling like you have to prove your diagnosis to people. And then I also spoke quite a lot about borderline personality disorder and autism and how the diagnostic criteria is similar and different. It's something I probably would also like to talk about on the main channel at some point, but I thought that was quite interesting. It's a very common misdiagnosis for autistic people, so I think it's an important one. Hours and hours of other stuff on there. You can go and have a browse and see what else is on the tiers. Anyway, if you would like to try out Delete Me as well, remember that you can get 20% off with my link, which will be at the top of the description below. You can also scan the QR code on screen. Thank you so much. I'll see you in my next video very soon. Bye.
Everyone's passing around Christmas cards in that lesson, and I didn't get one. How sad can somebody be? I am that sad. I did not get a single Christmas card at all.